What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly sports history for June 1st, 2024. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Saturday edition of the podcast. It's going to be a beautiful weekend, a little cloudy tomorrow, but I'll take it. And it's June. And June for me has always been just when the calendar turns to June, it's just a lot of excitement because school's winding down. Even now as an administrator, I get excited because it's still more laid back, more low key, not as many interruptions. I feel like I get way more work done in the summer when there's no students or teachers. But that goes back to when I was a kid and just looking forward to the end of the school year and summer fun and all of that. So even as an adult, even as an administrator who now still works all throughout the year, the excitement is still there. So I'm looking forward to June. And honestly, we have the ultimate nickname, Philly Sports Nickname Tournament coming up in June. So excited for that. Top 64 nicknames broken into 4 regions, 2 matchups a day starting on June 24th. Tell your friends, spread the word because I want to make this thing way bigger than the Lovable Loser tournament last year. We're going to do a Selection Friday show where I'll release the brackets and give you the entire weekend to just rip me for my choices and the rankings. Should be a lot of fun, so stay tuned for that. Best way to do it is subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jimbo_Mont. Hit me up on my socials too to make it easier to get your votes in. Twitter and TikTok at Jimbo_Mont. Instagram at PhillyJimbo. Hit me up on Facebook. You can always call the Back to the Future voice and text line 267-495-8531. Text, leave a voicemail for everything. But I'm really, like I said, looking forward to that nickname tournament. Should be a lot of fun, so stay tuned for that. Quick housekeeping note, I always say, and I like to make sure that everything I say on here is factually accurate. Yesterday, I inadvertently said the Sixers were down 9 going into the fourth quarter against the Lakers in the Game 4 of the NBA Finals. They were, in fact, down 11. I know it's not a big deal, but I always want to make sure I'm giving you the correct stats and information. It's something I pride myself on sometimes, and I had it down as 11. I just, like I said, I keep notes. Sometimes I don't have very good handwriting. Well, all the time I don't have very good handwriting. Sometimes I'm just not able to read my own writing. So the Sixers makes it even a better story. They were down 11 going into the fourth quarter, not 9. Still came out on top, shut the Lakers down. And if you didn't listen to it yesterday, do yourselves a favor. Go listen to Pieces of a Dream, Faux Fi Faux. I couldn't stop listening to it yesterday. It's incredible. I've probably listened between that and Eminem's new song. That's how I spent my evening last night, just listening to both of them. So go check out Pieces of the Dream, Faux Fi Faux, in honor of the Sixers winning the championship yesterday back in 1983. I believe either tomorrow or Monday would have been the anniversary of the victory parade. And for me, it's still the elusive Sixers parade. Been to a Phillies parade, been to an Eagles parade, have not yet been to a Sixers parade, and that is what I would love to do. So Santa Claus or whatever, if you can, give me a Sixers championship. It's not going to be easy, though, because we've talked a lot about this, and the rumors are just all over the place. There's so many options and ways the Sixers can go with this. They have the 16th pick. Now, there was a lot of articles yesterday saying their best way to contend with Joe would be to trade that pick for players. I don't know. I'm still not a fan of signing. I would love to have a third star in here. Do not get me wrong. But I don't want an old aging star. And truthfully, if you look at the Celtics and the Mavericks, each of them only really have the 2 big stars. They just have the right role players around them. I think that they're kind of laying the blueprint out. Like, it started back with the Celtics with the big 3, KG, Ray Allen, and the guy the Sixers should have drafted. Why can't I think of his name? Paul Pierce. And then, obviously, LeBron, and then KD, and all that. I don't know if that's the way to go, because if you look at the teams recently, including the Sixers, who have brought in a third star, it's been guys with 2 good stars and then the role player. I mean, look at Denver. They have Murray and Jokic, and a bunch of role players. They won it last year. The two teams this year, you have Kyrie and Luka, and then you have Tatum and Brown. So maybe that's the way to go. Take a run at it, and you have to hit on those role players. But I'm kind of leaning now more toward that. And again, I'm probably going to change my mind so many times. I've made it perfectly clear. The Sixers for me they're just, I know how it's going to end. I have no faith in them, yet they suck me in every time. So maybe that's the way to go. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. But now we have a week before the finals start. So kind of almost rooting for a longer series to take our minds off of this. Because I think the NBA new year starts the same. It doesn't matter when the finals ends. So let's hope that the Celtics lose. But that's kind of where I'm leaning now with the Sixers. Maybe it's better to build around Joe and Tyrese, extend Tyrese, and then you're not locking yourself in where if those guys get old, because Jimmy Butler hasn't played a full season. Paul George has been injured in the past couple of years. So it's not like you're getting those players 5-6 years ago. So maybe that's the way to go. We'll see. But I think now that I've had time to process it and I see the Mavs and the Celtics having really just two big guys and then the role players who do what they need to do, that's what you need. And I mean, as terrible as he was, as much as I hate him, you look at, why can't I even think of his name? That's how much my hate runs deep. The dude that played for the Sixers and then went right back to the Celtics, but why can't I think of his name? But he comes off the bench and hits shots. Al Horford comes off the bench and hits shots. Like that's what killed the Sixers a lot. I mean, if you think about it, even in the playoffs, when Joe was out, there was nobody really to kind of step in and hit those shots like Al Horford. So, like I said, maybe that's the way to go. Who knows? But all we can do now is wait. All of that because I wanted to make sure I gave you the right stats for the Sixers. Be sure to check out my boys over at the Clashing Conferences podcast as well. They talk all things NBA throughout the finals, which could be another 3 weeks, but that's available wherever you get your podcast as well as on YouTube. All right, let's go back to yesterday's question of the day. I asked you, going into next week's mandatory minicamp, what is the Eagles' biggest question? 50% of you still say it's the secondary. And I mean, it's justified because they don't have anyone proven. I'm kind of going with the law of averages where there's enough guys there that somebody is going to step up. And just truthfully, they can't be worse than they were last year. Everybody else was pretty evenly split between the D-line, O-line, and Jalen. I still think my biggest concern is Jalen just because you're kind of setting yourself back a couple years if Jalen turns out not to be the guy because of the way the contract is. I know a lot of people are like, oh, the contract's not going to be the thing that saves him. But that's a shitload of money for them to be on the hook for if they do cut him and move on from him. So we'll see. But as always, thank you for participating in the question today. There will be another one later in the show. I mentioned the nickname tournament. Really looking forward to that. Should be a ton of fun. Phillies won again. They've been pretty good at home. That's now 2 in a row overall. Edmundo Sosa has been phenomenal. And I mean, there's no other way to describe it. He's been absolutely phenomenal. Excuse me. Filling in for Trey Turner. Aaron Nola was good. The bullpen has been solid. Strom still extending that scoreless inning streak. The first team in Major League Baseball to 40 wins, which means usually they always say the way you do it is, I think it's like 50-50. Assume you're going to lose 50 games, assume you're going to win 50 games, and then it's the other 62. Well, the Phillies are off to a good start if you subscribe to that sort of formula for wins. But it was a solid game. Bryson Stott, it should be a Gold Glover this year. He was outstanding. JT's hit streak is over. That's all right. I feel like it was bound to happen sooner or later. Anyway, it's just good win. They're back at it this afternoon. And if you haven't seen it yet, and I apologize for the stuffiness with my nose. I don't know if it's allergies or what, but I woke up today and just was terrible. But If you haven't done this yet, go look at the Major League Baseball commercial for the London series next week between the Phillies and the Mets. Rob McElhenney, Chase Utley, and Bryce Harper in it. They knocked it out of the park. It was phenomenal. Chase, the fact that Rob was like, I thought I forget how he put it, but somehow he was like, or Bryce, I'm sorry, I'm kind of, my head's all over the place right now, but Bryce went to Chase and asked him something, and Chase started to give him hitting advice, and Bryce is like, no, it's not hitting advice, it's something else. Besides, I go to J-Roll for that anyway. Hilarious. Go check it out. It's actually well worth it. I'm kind of getting excited now for this London series, especially because the Mets are a dumpster fire. But speaking of the London series, go to Philly Goat, get your London series stuff. It obviously will not be here in time or it's doubtful it'll be here in time for the series. However, a lot of the shirts can double as 4th of July gear for you to wear. I've been telling you about the shoes. I wore some more yesterday. They're so comfortable. So go check it out, phillygoat.com. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order. Get the shoes, get the shirts, use the promo code, have a little bit of fun, and do some shopping today. All right, Flyers, there is no Mishkov update still, but it kind of still got me thinking a little bit, and there's been so many articles kind of pumping him up and saying how good he's going to be, like from national, like The Athletic, a lot of the big hockey sites, and it's kind of nerve-wracking because I'm like, all right, there's a lot of hype, and I know hockey more so than any other sports are different when it deals with prospects and things like that. But me being the typical cynical Phillies fan or Philly fan, I'm thinking guys like, oh, Don Brown, a lot of hype. Remember how many times they wouldn't trade Don Brown for decent players and everything? Because no, he's untouchable. He's a 6-tool player. He had like a month and a half of good games. Any Eagles wide receiver during Howie Roseman's era, or even going back to Andy Reid's era, remember Fred X? And also, remember Nay Brown? Everybody told us how great he was looking in camp and he was ready to step up and then disappeared once the regular season started. I mean, we just got done talking about the Sixers. The entire process, like Jahlil Okafor, I don't know. We'll see, but I mean, the fact that so many people are so high on this guy, I'm hoping, and I don't like using this phrase because that's when you get into trouble, but a can't miss prospect. But we'll have more on the Mishkov update as it comes, but we'll have daily updates until we get a decision. All right, Eagles. I wanted to go back a little bit to the Nolan Smith. I re-listened to the interview, and this dude has so much potential because I looked at the way he composed himself and the way he spoke during that press conference. He said all the right things. It was May. I get that. He looked bigger, and he just looked like he was ready to step up and take that next step. And he reminded me a lot of Brandon Graham. If you remember, myself included, even though I watched him a lot at Michigan, there were a lot of questions about Brandon Graham after his first year, even his second year. The Eagles almost didn't re-sign him. They were looking. Chip was at one point looking to trade him. So I think because the expectations are so high with the Eagles, where our expectations are higher with Nolan Smith, I think he's going to have a solid year. I think he looks like he put in the work and is ready to go, but he does. He seems like, personality-wise and the way his game is, I feel as though he could be the guy that almost takes over for Brandon Graham. And, I mean, those are big shoes to fill. I get that, but it does seem that he has that potential and that personality to do it. Isaiah Rodgers also, I thought this was interesting. I missed this tidbit when I was watching the first time. He said he stayed in shape while he was suspended because he stayed, and I don't know why more guys don't even do this maybe during the offseason, or maybe they do and they just don't talk about it, but he worked out on an NFL schedule. So he said Tuesdays were days off. I would start ramping it up. Friday or Sunday, which was game day, is when he did all his hardcore cardio, which I thought was an interesting thing. And by all accounts, he seems as though he is really ready to step in, and he's in game shape. And I know that was a concern that people said. So I'm all in on this Eagles team. And I know, and as much as the Sixers are like the ex-girlfriend that sucks me back in, the Eagles, I feel like, are I'm just completely oblivious and blind. Whatever they say, I'm like, sure. But again, they cannot be as bad as they were the second half of last year. There's too much talent, too much going on. And the Georgia players, a lot of them, maybe they hit the rookie wall. They have the pedigree. They have the talent. I'm very bullish on the Eagles, especially the defense. I think you're going to see a top 15 defense, and I'm saying that before training camp, so don't hold me to that. But I think they have the potential to do that, which if that front seven can do its job, all of a sudden the secondary's job gets much easier, and you have a lot of versatility and playmakers back there. Let them go do their thing. The Union are in action tonight, again down at Subaru Park against Montreal. They have a 3-game shutout streak. They haven't scored in 2 games either. Big game standings-wise with Montreal. This is a game they should win. So hopefully they can get on the board, but have that defense shut them down again. All right. Today, we're going to go back to 1969. And on this day in 1969, Phillies lost to the Dodgers 12-4 at Connie Mack Stadium. But Dick Allen went 2 for 3 with a homer, 2 RBI, 2 walks. The home run was his 5th straight in 5 games, which set the Phillies record. Since then, Mike Schmidt, Bobby Abreu, and Chase Utley twice have hit 5 home runs over 5 days. Allen and Abreu each hit 5. Mike Schmidt hit 7 during that 5-game stretch. And Chase Utley, when he did it twice, hit 5 and then 6. And he did that in the same season. It was early in the season, too. But that is the Phillies record. If you're keeping score at home, the Major League record is 8, tied by 3 people. Dale Long from the 56 Pirates, Don Mattingly from the 87 Yankees, and Ken Griffey Jr. from the 93 Mariners. That 1969 Phillies team, though, was absolutely terrible. This is one of the few highlights of that team. They were on their way to a 63-99 record. Also happened to be Dick Allen's last year in his first stint with the Phillies. He had a solid year, 32 homers, 89 RBI, and hit 288, which is phenomenal considering the team was just so bad around him. But on this day in 1969, Dick Allen hit a home run in his 5th straight game, setting the Phillies record, which has now been tied by Chase Utley twice, Bobby Abreu, and Mike Schmidt. And truthfully, Dick Allen should be in the Hall of Fame. It's a damn shame that he was not able to get in. I think he missed it by 1 vote. He will get in someday, but it's a travesty, unfortunately, that he is not here to see it. Just one of the premier power hitters, and I think maybe lost out of it all was just how bad those Phillies teams were that he was on after the 64 collapse. And then when he came back the second time around, they were getting better, but he was further along in his career. That leads, though, to today's question of the day. We've mentioned in this episode so far 3 guys that have Hall of Fame resumes for the Phillies. Of the 3 of them, which one should be in? Is it Dick Allen? Is it Jimmy Rollins? Or is it Chase Utley? Let me know your thoughts. 267-495-8531. Get you into the Back to the Future voice and text line. I can certainly make the case for all 3 of them. I think Dick Allen should have already been in. I think Jimmy Rollins should be in. I think of the 3, the next one probably to get in will be Chase Utley. I don't know if because he's working for Major League Baseball, if they're going to skew it or not. But you can, like I said, you can make the case for any of the 3. I do think Dick Allen gets in. He should already be in, and I think J-Roll should get in. He may get in later in his career as well. But if you really look at Dick Allen compared to where everybody else was at the time, he played with some of the greatest power hitters in the game, and he was one of the top guys during that time frame. You just don't hear much about him because the Phillies were terrible, and then you had guys like Hank Aaron and Willie Mays who were just smashing the cover off the ball. So let me know your thoughts. Of those 3, which one should be in the Hall of Fame? You can't choose all 3. Dick Allen, Jimmy Rollins, Chase Utley. Let me know your thoughts. 267-495-8531. Get you in on the Back to the Future voice and text line. All right, it is June. We're gearing up for the nickname tournament. However, until then, we're going to take a trip down Phillies Memory Lane in order to get us ready for the dog days of summer where all we have is Phillies baseball until training camp. Today's spotlight is one of my favorite players when I was a kid. I think maybe not favorite isn't the right word, but the guy that I thought was going to step up and be a star. Unfortunately for the Phillies back then, nobody was a star. But that is Wes Chamberlain, outfielder. He was drafted in 1987 by the Pirates, traded to the Phillies in 1990 with Julio Peguero, with Julio Peguero, and a player to be named later for Carmelo Martinez. There's a name from the past, Carmelo Martinez. That player to be named later ended up being Tony Longmire. He was another guy who came in with a ton of potential and just didn't pan out. But Wes played 1990 to 1994 with the Phillies. His best year came on a terrible 1991 team. He played a career-high 101 games, hit 13 homers, 50 RBIs, scored 50 runs. Actually was fifth in the Rookie of the Year voting that year. So it's not like my love for Wes Chamberlain was just blind love. Like, he came in and had some talent. He hit 12 homers in 76 games in the 1993 season, which again got my hopes up because that 93 team was solid, but Wes Chamberlain was sort of their next guy off the bench as far as power hitting. He had a great NLCS in 1993. He hit 364 in 4 games. And then that was sort of the high point of Wes Chamberlain's career. Traded midway through the 94 season with Mike Sullivan. Yeah, I don't know who he was either. For Paul Quantrill and Billy Hatcher. I remember that was when the Phillies were trying to put together. They were right there in the thick of it. But the Expos were so good. But they had the wild card that year. And they were certainly alive for that. And then the strike happened. And then we know what happened after that for the Phillies. But Wes did end up playing in Japan. And then after he played in Japan, he played in independent leagues and became an all-star, which makes sense. I mean, he's playing against guys that weren't in the minor leagues. But again, I wanted him so badly to be good. And if you, the early 90s to mid-90s in Philly sports were just brutal. I mean, you had the Sixers who, guys like Clarence Weatherspoon, Sharon Wright, Sean Bradley, guys I wanted to be good that just never panned out. You had the Eagles during the Rich Kotite era, and then we all know how that turned out. The Phillies were just absolutely horrible. The Flyers were starting to get good, but they were a terrible team. So that was just a tough time. So for me, a guy like Wes Chamberlain, it was like, yes, the heir apparent to Mike Schmidt. But no, it never happened. So our trip down Phillies Memory Lane is Wes Chamberlain, outfielder for the Phillies. One of my favorites who just never panned out. Be sure to hit me up on the Back to the Future voice and text line or any of my social media to let me know, of the three, which one is most deserving of the Hall of Fame: Dick Allen, Jimmy Rollins, or Chase Utley. Let me know your thoughts on anything else. You can let me know on social media. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and spread the word. Let's get a huge turnout for this nickname tournament. On this day in 1969, Dick Allen hit a home run in a 12-4 Phillies loss to the Dodgers. It was his 5th homer in 5 games, setting the Phillies record, which has been tied with Bobby Abreu, Chase Utley, and Mike Schmidt. All three of them. The Major League record is 8. We will have more on the Union, more on the Eagles as they gear up for mandatory minicamp. Hopefully we get some movement on the Mishkov news, but it is June. Go outside, enjoy the weather, have some fun today. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History for June 1st, 2024. I'm Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Saturday, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.